I don't. Yes. I like reminders too. That is so cold on my ball.
Everyone will be able to see people that signed up, including. Do you still want me to name them off? Or want me to get this? You can just name off the names. Okay.
Don't forget.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, let's call this evening's meeting to order. And tonight, as our secretary, Cassie Kimball. Are you ready? Roll call.
Illingworth?
Here.
Kimball? Here. Patterson? Here. Rusterholt?
Here. Now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Bill Brown.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Illingworth.
Thank you, Mr. Rusterholt. As we turn to our moment of silence, I know so many of us do it with broken hearts, thinking of little Liam Bruchet and his family, and so many in our community and our schools who loved him and missed him. So I know that we turn to that with him and his family in mind. Thank you.
Let's stand for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. You may be seated. May I have a motion for an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Illingworth?
Aye.
Kimball? Aye. Patterson? Aye. Rusterholt?
Aye. This evening we have a community spotlight and special guests. Do we? We do not.
This evening was struck.
It was struck.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I was looking forward to it. We missed it last month. I was looking forward to it tonight. Okay, this evening we will have public comment, and Ms. Lindsay will be reading off names and be our timer keeper. So, Lindsay, what do we have this evening?
Yep, so we have 6 people total that signed up, so everyone who signed up will have an opportunity to speak, and each person will be limited to 3 minutes. I'll give everybody a 1-minute warning once you have 1 minute left. And our first speaker is Nick Owen.
Good evening, Board of Directors. And good evening, Interim Superintendent, Mr. Witt. First off, let me introduce myself for those of you that are new. My name is Nate Owen. I am a math and a science teacher at the Woodland Park High School, and I have been here for just a little over 12 years now. I run the Rock Climbing Club and I run the Key Club, which is a service organization under the parent organization of Kiwanis. And I am here because I represent the staff as the WPEA president. On behalf of the staff of the Woodland Park School District, we'd like to welcome Mr. Ken Witt to the school district. So thank you for joining us. As you mentioned during your interview process, the first thing that you mentioned that you would like to do is listen. I heard that loud and clear, and you said that several times. I would be happy to sit down with you and have a little bit of a chit chat. I'd love to communicate, listen, talk, and have a little bit of open dialogue and open communication. So I am opening that offer up if you'd like to take me up on that. I know that both of us have busy schedules and it's hard to find time during the week, and I understand that we do have a lot going on. So if we could sit down and find some time, I would love to do that. So thank you. Until then, we as the staff are looking forward to hearing some of the things that you have to say tonight. Dialogue takes and makes multiple parties come together, and it's very important and valued at the staff that we have that, we have that clear communication, so that way we can exist and work together. With the agenda tonight, we're hoping to see some more of our vision of our school district and what it entails going forward. We'd love to have some light provided so that way we can move forward with a mission. This can go a long way to build support in gaining the trust of key stakeholder groups in our community. I'd like to share some words from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who wrote about the purpose of education. We must remember that intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character is the true goal of education. Complete education gives one not only power of concentration, but worthy objectives upon which to concentrate. To Dr. King, it wasn't enough for schools to teach facts, such as math, science, history, reading, and writing. The schools are also responsible for teaching children character as true Americans, how to be good people, and how to get along with each other. That is a worthy goal. Woodland Park schools are a great example of this, where children learn to become adults who value each other because of their differences, not fear each other due to them. We have children who not only learn their academics well, but they learn to celebrate their differences. We as a staff has had a long history of working with this board, past boards, and all past superintendents to make Woodland Park School District better for students. We look forward to the opportunity to build mutual respect and value each other's diverse experiences to help unify our community. We come with a collaborative attitude. Please let us continue with this. I have a little bit more if you guys wouldn't mind listening.
Go ahead, Nate.
The staff, I'd like to give you a little bit of an update on the staff. We've had a 2.5 week long break and we've come back. We've come back rested and we are ready to work. We're ready to work with our students to see them grow. We've had 2 fantastic days of professional development on Monday and Tuesday, and we are working hard to support our students during the second semester. We have a growth mindset mentality amongst the staff, and we have a desire to always improve on our craft of teaching. A final thought that I'd like to share from a proclaimed author and professor at Oxford and Cambridge, you guys might know his name, C.S. Lewis. He talks about education greatly. He says, the task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts. Lastly tonight, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize our Columbine staff. As Director Illingworth said, we have had the loss of one of our own kindergartners recently, and they have come together, and they've come together to support each other. They support first and foremost the students, and then they come to support each other. And I'll tell you that the attitude and the collaboration and the togetherness at Columbine Elementary today was unparalleled. You will not see that hardly anywhere else in this country. I know that they came together to be Woodland Park Panther Community Strong. They came together to be strong, they came together to be proud, and they came together to support each other. I know that my time is coming to a close with my speaking to you. And Mr. Illingworth, can I speak directly to you? I was very proud of what you did when you asked for the moment of silence in honor of William. I honestly, sincerely appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me tonight. I appreciate it. I look forward to working together with you collaboratively. I hope you guys all have a great day. Thank you for your time.
Megan DeSmith.
All right, my speech was 5 minutes. I will try to cut some stuff down. My name is Megan DeSmith. For 18 years, I ran a state-funded employment program for individuals with disabilities for Woodland Park School District. I retired from the district at the end of last school year and am now a full-time small business owner. I am the parent of an 11th grader and the spouse of a 15-year Woodland Park School District teacher. I have some thoughts I would like to share about the proposed civics curriculum that is listed as an action item for the board to vote on this evening. This is a big deal to me, to the teachers, to the students, and to many people in this community. On Monday of this week, the board's agenda was posted with an action line item titled Social Studies Academic Standards Resolution. No further information. The community, and maybe only a limited few as it was not posted publicly, learned just yesterday that the curriculum to be voted on this evening, although we don't have that much information, is called American Birthright. If that is wrong, you might want to stop me now. Instead of making an assumption, I would like to ask the board, not that this is a conversation, I understand that, I would still like to ask the board if they have taken a moment to consult with the great variety of teachers in this district who teach this core content in our schools, and if they have asked them their thoughts about this curriculum. I wish you would have posted this to the public and requested feedback before tonight. I wanted to remind the board members that the usual process to implement new curriculum in this district is incredibly and thorough and takes significant work. I still remember our former specialist in this area, Linda Murray, who did a great deal of this. This board, since you all were voted in, have heard the current professionals in this district about how much time, effort, and cost it takes to vet, train, staff, verify, and implement new curriculum. Did you say 1 minute already? Okay. Here's what the 102-year-old National Council for Social Studies has to say about the American Birthright. Actually, you know what? I'm going to skip right to what it says on the American Birthright's website, having to do with high school, the 3 high school standards that they want seen. The third one on that list, taken exactly from their website verbatim, quote, a ban on political activism. The 9th through 12th civics curriculum should contain exclusively academic instruction and should ban any form of political activism with no credit for and no encouragement of service learning, civic engagement, action civics, or any related activity. Sorry, Kiwanis. Sorry, Scouts. Sorry, Young Republicans. Sorry, Student Council.
Time.
This is what you're voting on tonight. This is a big deal. Thanks.
Sarah Lee.
My name is Sarah Lee, and I have been serving as an educator for 28 years. 17, thank you. 17 of which have been here in Woodland Park. Over the last 17 years, I've been able to work with students and families at the middle school and high school, teaching English, theater, sources of strength, serving as the dean of students, organizing and facilitating all state testing at the high school, and reviving the library post-COVID at the high school as the library media specialist. And those are only the official things. Throughout my tenure at WPSD, I have had two wonderful mentors who have coached me and supported me. Mentors who have selflessly given years of service to this district. And I would like to take a moment tonight to recognize and publicly thank Del Garrick and Tina Cassis for their service. Del and Tina, thank you for your commitment to WPSD, for stepping into roles fraught with stress to be a champion of students, staff, and families in our community. You have done an excellent job leading our district in all your roles. There have been a lot. And we recognize, all of us, how challenging it is to lead in the current times. You have modeled excellence daily, and we are thankful you remain important members of the WPSD district team. On a personal note, I'd like to thank you both for supporting me when this Board of Education took me out of the classroom and the library at Woodland Park High School twice in the weeks preceding the winter break. My removal was groundless and an infringement on my rights as a member of this community and a teacher in this district.
1 minute.
I was so hopeful that the board would vote tonight to return me to the classroom where I can rejoin you and my colleagues and friends in serving our community. Alas, this is not the case. Like you, Del and Tina, I am a proud Panther. I value justice, equity, student empowerment, critical thinking, knowledge, unity, and kindness. I stand together with you, with the students, with the staff and families of Woodland Park, and I remain committed to working each and every day to ensure our students have the education they need to become the great adults they are all meant to be. I look forward to the day when I get to return to Woodland Park High School and continue to support, teach, and impact students the best way I can each day. Thank you.
Chase Wood.
My name is Chase Wood, and the most impactful thing I can tell you about myself is I'm a student of Woodland Park High School. The only thing I want to say right now is changes to the curriculum and policy is frankly lazy when faced with the real issues that the students and the teachers are having at the high school level. You can ask most anyone at the high school and they can see apparent problems. There's a mental health crisis among the students with few, if any, accessible resources for those who are looking for help and looking for someone to talk to. Teachers are lacking the resources necessary to run programs that are vastly impactful. And if these people are supposed to be our mentors, the people that we are supposed to aspire to be, how are we meant to feel when you have examples of teachers having to stay up past midnight, away from family, away from friends, away from the very children that you were elected to ensure the stability and growth of, because they need to write grants to ensure that their program stays accessible to all. If you want to make a real difference in this district, I would implore you to speak to your teachers. See what resources they have and what resources they don't have, and you will see a glaring disparity between those two. The most impactful thing you can do right now is make sure that every educator, everyone who's devoted their time, education, and lives to improving the lives of students, make sure they have what they need and make sure the students have what they need to be successful at this high school. We can speak to policy or curriculum all we could ever want to, but does it really matter if the teachers are lacking textbooks, or lacking the ability to provide for their own classrooms? I don't believe so. That's all I have to say.
Carol Greenstreet.
Is there anything we can do about the blowers or the air conditioning? It's cold. I put my hat on my bare head.
Good. You guys ready? At the last board meeting, I chose not to turn my back when others in the room did. What I saw was not just anger, it was raw grief. I wish you could have seen the faces of the educators and parents who you promised to listen to. You all, during your campaign, said that previous boards did not listen to parents and that you would listen to all parents, not just some of them. Parents have filled this boardroom over and over again, yet their concerns have fallen on deaf ears. I've spoken with many parents who have told me it's a waste of time as you don't listen. I remember a meeting when Director Illingworth was pleased that you added a second public comment at the end of the meeting, and it never happened again. And now you're cutting the time to decrease the dissonance. City Council doesn't limit the public comment time, and previous boards never limited the public comment time. I'm also very disheartened at the lack of situational awareness you display as leaders. Implying that the district is fearful of change is a joke. You don't know these people. Change has been constant for the past several years. These are educators that masterfully navigated changes brought by COVID. They've managed change in curriculum, technology, grading systems, leadership, and in many more areas. I believe that their issue is trust and leadership, not change. In my first statement to you in December of 2021, I said, I hope that intellectual integrity will be a mark of this board because the people in this room will know. The people in this room have seen you bring politics into the school, but only one party. They've seen many decisions made with little to no discussion, knowing you disregard the intent of open meetings. They have been maligned as people who are indoctrinating children. They are apprehensive about completing surveys as they don't know it will be anonymous. They hear rumors that Merritt Academy will take over the middle school next year, yet they know it hasn't been discussed in open meetings. They know that as parents, they should have a voice but feel silenced for fear of losing their job if they speak in opposition. They watch you give Merritt Academy a platform at every meeting when there are actually 5 other schools in the district that don't receive that favor. They understand that the time you set for public to respond to your decision is a smokescreen as you've made your decisions. You just want to appear to listen. These people that you seem to see as disposable are members of our community, most longer than most of you. They've cared for our children. They are valuable and needed. At the last meeting, there was an administrator from another district here recruiting teachers. As one of your former supporters said to me last week, what is going on over there? That was horrible leadership.
Kershid Rogers.
Before I start, just for clarification for when we prepare at home, should we be preparing for 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 4 minutes? I feel like it kind of changes every time, so.
Kershid, how much time would you like?
I don't need a lot today, but I just felt badly for Megan because she was prepared for 5. So,
Take the time you need.
okay, but the question still stands, like just for the future, because we do try to stay on time. My name is Kersheed Rogers. I'm speaking to express my concern and lack of understanding really about the new social studies academic standard resolution that you will be voting on tonight. My understanding is that you are discussing the American Birthright Standard. I only received access to the name of the proposed standard today, so I have not been able to thoroughly read and understand all that it entails. My first impressions are that it is quite political. It seems to orient toward American exceptionalism in 1776, etc. Not things that I am personally aligned with and things that cause me concern. So I have a few questions that I'm hoping you can address in tonight's meeting. The first is, was this information on this standard and your resolution advertised and available somewhere and I just missed it? Like, I'd like to be informed about what you're voting on, and I really try. I really try to be informed. You talk about a commitment to transparency, but I'm feeling very in the dark regarding this. And again, to me, your process feels rushed and closed off to input. Like, if this is something you believe has merit, why not share it and offer people time to become familiar with it and offer feedback? My second question, before your vote tonight, can you please be very clear and detailed about all the ramifications of adopting this standard? I don't understand the implications of a yes vote. I would like to understand what exactly it impacts, and I would like to understand how we will be in compliance with state standards if we adopt this. My third question is, if you vote yes on this resolution, how does it impact my students' choices? If you want to offer an alternative high school social studies class as a choice, I can handle that. You guys have been so vocal about the value of choice. I would just like some assurance that you aren't limiting my choices for my students. Fourth, if you are voting on adopting this for K through 12, and if it will directly impact the content taught to my middle schooler, will you stand by your policies on controversial topics and offer me an opt-in, opt-out opportunity, as well as provide alternate learning assignments? Lastly, are you following an established procedure for adopting a new standard? I don't know, like an established procedure that has some integrity. I'd like to understand that. That's it. Thank you.
Our last speaker tonight is going to be David Resterholz.
Thank you. This evening, I'd like to come to you simply as David. I've been honored to serve this community not only as a director, but as the president of the Board of Education. This Board of Education has certainly had its tests and its trials. And I thank our community for their support. I'd like to thank the Board of Directors for the hard work they've done this previous year. This month marks 1 year and a few months since I was sworn in as a director, and I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of Colorado, and to represent and serve the good people of Woodland Park School District. and I have humbly done so. As I consider the political and social dynamics of our nation, I'm saddened to see the same division right here in our own county, in our own school district. This division is much more than political. This is a clash of worldviews. Each side is pitted strongly against the other. And some people here would say that this new conservative board of directors has caused this division in our community. I would like to pose, once again, that it did not cause the division, but it revealed a chasm that already existed. The question for us is this: is there a peaceful way forward? If there is, are we willing to take it? The first time I ran for public office, I was asked to describe myself, not what I did, but who am I? I had to think for a minute, but then I answered in priority. I am a Christian, pro-life American. The reporter's response was, so, you're going to be controversial right off. Wow. What I asked is, what is controversial about forgiveness, mercy, grace, faith, hope, peace, being quick to forgive and not holding grudges, but above all, to show love to others? That's how I've chosen to live my life, to model those attributes. That's what I believe a Christian does. A vital component of living my life is the way of prayer. I've been told that I may not pray at our meetings. I may not encourage others to pray, and I'm very sad about that. Our great nation has been built upon prayer, and our state constitution and our Declaration of Independence all acknowledge both the Creator and the supreme ruler of this universe. Without God's loving kindness and mercy and wisdom, how can we bring our fractured nation and divided community together? I urge each one of us to seek for wisdom. 145 times in the past 246 years, presidents of the United States have called for national days of prayer to seek divine favor when our nation has faced serious trouble. Our Congress, Senate, our Colorado Senate and state representatives, along with many other elected offices, all begin their public meetings with prayer. Why not seek the Lord at our school board meetings?
That's right.
I won't pray tonight.
Okay.
But I will ask for blessing over our schools, our teachers, our administration, our board of directors, but most of all, our students and their parents. May the Lord bless us and keep us. May His face shine upon us and be gracious to us and give us His peace.
Amen.
Thank you.
Well, next we have the consent calendar.
All right, next we have approval of our consent calendar. May I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar? So moved. Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Billingworth.
Aye.
Kimbrell. Aye. Patterson. Aye. Rusterholt.
Aye.
Before we move to the next agenda item, Director Rusterholz, I think you had expressed a desire to read the annual meeting notice resolution, just so it was on public record. Would you like to do that? Or did you decide not to?
I can.
Go ahead, Cass.
Okay. Are you talking about the consent calendar? Okay. As you guys know, Kelly had an injury with her arm, and so she's not here. So the draft minutes of the meetings held in December are not ready due to Kelly's injury, and they will be provided and approved at the future action meeting.
Are you gonna read the resolution? Okay. Just one second. Hold on.
Excuse me just a moment.
I'll go ahead and read the resolution, if that's all right.
Go ahead. Thank
So
you.
what was just approved in the consent calendar, ladies and gentlemen, the annual meeting notice resolution. It says notification of meeting place. Whereas the Colorado Sunshine Act, CRS 24-6-402, 2B, declares that all meetings of 3 or more members of any local public body at which any public business is discussed or at which any formal action may be taken are open to the public. And whereas the Colorado Sunshine Act, CRS 24-6-402, 2C, requires a full and timely notice to be posted in a designated public place within the boundaries of the school district, not less than 24 hours prior to the meeting. And whereas the Colorado Sunshine Act, CRS 24-6-402, 2C, requires the public place for meeting notices to be designated at the first regular meeting of each calendar year, therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Woodland Park School District RE2 as follows, that all public notices of meetings of the Board of Education of the Woodland Park School District RE2 will be posted on the district website and on the bulletin board in the entryway of the administration building at 155 Panther Way, Woodland Park, Colorado. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to, are we ready to move on to 7? All right, I want to welcome our new interim superintendent. And just to say a few things about Mr. Witt, his background includes leadership in high-tech companies, including as officer and vice president of engineering of a public communications electronic company. He's been the CEO of an intrusion prevention software company and information security officer, vice president, governance of one of Colorado's public global resource companies, and also Colorado's largest private company. Mr. Witt has dedicated the last decade of his career to Colorado leadership and innovation in Colorado public education. He served on the Board of Education of Colorado's largest school district, founded 2 companies that provided education resources to public schools, and for the past few years has led the Education Re-envisioned BOCES as executive director. I'd like to welcome Mr. Witt this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You mind if I go ahead and say a few words?
Please do.
That's the next agenda item. I was just making
That's
certain
okay.
we're ready to move to it.
We're ready.
I just want to thank you all for, number one, your engagement and involvement in Woodland Park education. There is nothing dearer to me and more important to our future generations than public education. It is a passionate topic for all of us.
That's right.
Because we all care very much about our children, we all care very much about our community, we all care very much about our future. And so I just want you to know that I've dedicated a lot of my personal interest, time, and career to focusing on how can we improve education, how can we do the right things by students, how can we have a great next generation. And I commit to committing that same focus, that same energy, and that same drive to Woodland Park. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of your community and a leader in your public education system.
Thank you. So next we have a policy update for our first reading, and Mr. Witt, will you please take over that?
Absolutely. Your calendar for policy reviews, of course, includes a review each month according to your board policy GPA. It says that we should, at the very least, review GP1 and GP10 this month, which we will do in trying to begin to look at where we need to go and what we need to block and tackle. I've added a few other policies here for a review so that we can begin to move through policies in the district. GP1 and GP10, GP1 being the governance commitment policy, and GP10 being the monitoring board performance policy, which were scheduled for review this month. The district has no recommendations for revision, so there are no revisions proposed. GP8, agenda planning and board meetings, does have a few edits proposed on it, and that's for the governance process. You have that in your board packet. Would the board like me to mention the edits, or have you reviewed them?
Yes, please.
Okay, so in GP.
Which page are you on? Oh, they're not numbered. Okay. Just trying to
Oh, no worries, let me,
catch up
Don't mind, let
specifically
me-
where you are.
yes.
Thank you.
So GP8 is the agenda planning and board meetings policy. And the changes, the first recommended change is to item 2 under regular meetings. And that is to say that meetings of the board shall be held by the second Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m., which is currently what it says, and then added, and may be preceded by a district community spotlight at 5:30 p.m. if included on posted meeting schedules, so that we can have the community in and then have an orderly transition out into the regular public meeting. The second change is in the next section, section C. It says education related to district purpose statement. We have a board purpose statement which this board passed, core beliefs and purpose. And I just want to make certain that we're clear that we have one and that it's new. So in a couple of places, we changed that to the board purpose statement to be clear with what's present. And then on, let's see, item 4, in the planning cycle, it says to accomplish this job, the board will adhere to the following meeting protocol. Item 3, just a moderate recommended change. It says the agenda for the board meeting will be prepared by the board president and superintendent, but we'd like to get to a regular discipline around agenda planning. And so we'd like to stroke that to include in an agenda setting meeting at least once a week prior to the board meeting. And then if any board member wishes to include a topic on the board agenda, that topic will be brought to the board president at least 24 hours prior to the agenda setting meeting, so it can be included in the conversation. And then if possible, and no later than 48 hours prior to the meeting. That's a moderate change to the way we do it now, but to be orderly with the agenda planning. And then item 5, a public comment period is scheduled at every regular board meeting. This is the change to public comment. Individual comments will be limited to 3 minutes instead of 5. And time allotted to a particular topic will be limited to a total of 15 minutes instead of 20. There was a question earlier about, is this just a one-time change or whatever? This is a recommended policy change. And then last but not least, at the very end of the policy, in the last sentence, no business other than that stated in the notice of the special meeting shall be transacted unless members are present and agree to consider and transact other business. That's actually the way the law states, and for whatever reason, the word special is missing previously. Those are the only recommended changes to GP8.
Are there any comments, discussion?
Seem like pretty minor changes. In some cases eliminating a little bit of confusion, in other cases bringing things, in compliance with the law, so.
With the compliance. I did hear some people when we were talking about the comments and limiting, it does say, and which President Resterholz did, at the discretion of the board president, the total time may be extended. So there's still that as well.
Anything, Sue?
Changes sound good to me.
I do have a concern with the public comment period. I think that was a very important thing. It was something that when I was attending meetings that I liked how, when we first started, we did have 2 public comment times. And I personally am not in favor of limiting it even further to a half hour. Like this evening, maybe we could have limited it to a half hour, but we don't want it to run away. But that was one of the things that we talked about when we first came in here about, should we have it at the beginning? Should we have it at the end of the meeting? Should we have it both times? I don't want to have the appearance of having, limiting any kind of, confronting us with it, with different topics. Like if it's controversial, like tonight, it's controversial to a lot of people who are here tonight. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you have to say. And, we can't go on and on and on forever, but like Mrs. Rogers said, City Council doesn't have limits on it. I think that we need to have some time limits on it, but I don't want to see it going to 30 minutes. I would like to have it stay at an hour and that the president or the board could have discretion on limiting or extending. I take advantage of that if somebody is talking and has something important that I think is important to say, whether I agree with it or not. I want to hear what they have to say. So I'm not in favor of making this edit on number 5. The other ones I'm fine with, but not this one.
The edit doesn't have the hour on there. The edit only talks about the 3 to 5 minute or the topic extended from 20 to 15.
That is correct.
So it would still be an hour, at least an hour of public comment.
It would be at your discretion in the agenda setting if you wanted to set that.
Yeah, at the agenda setting meeting where the board president sets that for 30 to 60 minutes, so.
I'm allocating.
And I agree that if there's public, like we did our town hall, we need to have discussion and public comment for certain topics, especially if there needed to be longer topics. But it does say, and why I brought up 5F, at the discretion of the board president, the total time may be extended, which I saw you do here tonight as well. Certain.
Okay. The 3 to 5 minutes, I'd like to, is there any comment specifically about that? I know that a lot of meetings we go to that there is a 3, what is does anybody know what city council?
3 minutes.
Like 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
It's 3 minutes.
3 minutes. And then with the option of extending that if it goes.
As board president, yes.
So 3 minutes. But I want to make sure that we aren't limiting the amount of time. I felt uncomfortable about that this evening, but there weren't that many people who had signed up. So as long as we keep it the hour with discretion, being able to let people keep going if necessary. Any thoughts on that?
Well, just to be clear, the changes that are in here don't change that. It doesn't say public comment will only be 30 minutes or public comment will be only an hour. It's talking about the individual time and then total time for a topic. As Ken was saying, when you approve an agenda, that's when the total time gets put on there. And like you've said, most of the time that full hour doesn't get used up. And when we have had some really big projects going on, we've actually set extra meetings with town halls and things like that. So just to be clear, whether the changes are adopted or not, and that's not happening tonight one way or the other, it's not going to affect an hour or 30 minutes. That's not under review.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on that moving forward. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Witt.
The remaining policy, is the LBD policy. It's around charter approvals and just trying to make that a little more consistent and a little less onerous. You have approved your first charter school, of course, here in the district. There may be changes over time that involve additional applications. And as you work through that, I just want to make certain that it is reasonable to be able to work through. So there are a couple of minor changes recommended here. I will point out that this is not a board policy. This is actually an administrative policy, and I recognize that. But because it's public facing, because someone has to meet the timeline for submission, I think it's appropriate to discuss this one in the public meeting. So the recommended changes to LBD are relations with district charter schools. On the letter of intent to apply form, there was only a 15-day window for anyone to propose a new school or program under the Charter Act. So we want to change that to the letter of intent to apply will be accepted between August 1st and no later than October 15th. So it's not a 2-week window, it's a 6 or August, September, October, so 10-week window. Unless a later deadline is granted in writing by the superintendent for a later submission deadline. And the point there is, if you're talking about some configuration change to a school or something, there may be reasons to have some flexibility. We want to be a district that has flexibility and is nimble and isn't just tied up in a policy. I think it's important to be able to move nimbly. Timeline for submission of application. In accordance with this regulation, the district charter applicant shall submit an application to the district by, it said September, it now says October 15th as the recommended change, give it a little more time. However, the board or the superintendent may waive this deadline and establish in writing to the applicant a later deadline. Again, flexibility if it's a smaller or a more natural change, simpler change. Application completeness check is the next section. It says that applicants shall be allowed 15 days from the date of receipt of such notification to provide the missing information. I'm recommending that you change that to 20 days. I've watched the thrash in an application with the respondent trying to get information pulled together and get it right. And I think it would be fair to give a little more time for that. Review by District Accountability Committee. The same applies to the District Accountability Committee. It gave them 15 days, which is the requirement, the minimum requirement by law. I'd like to change that to 20 days as well to give them appropriate time for consideration and response. To review the application and return documentation of the review to the designated district administrator upon the committee's striking prior to review by the board just because it was redundant. Upon the committee's completion of its review, the designated district administrators shall forward the application, and here's the inserted words, review documentation and superintendent's recommendation to the board for review at the next regular board meeting, i.e. making certain that the board has the full information. The next section is review by the board. And we're recommending that the board shall not accept or consider an incomplete application, nor shall the board take action on an application if the information deemed necessary by the district administration to complete the application is not received within the 20-day period, harking back to the previous recommended change. I believe, and that's it for that policy. Attached to that is the intent to apply form itself. And so the recommended change there is to make it consistent with the policy statement itself. And that is to change it to say also that the intent to apply will be accepted August 1st and no later than October 15th, unless a written grant from the superintendent for a later deadline is included with this form. Those are the recommended changes for the charter application process.
Discussion.
It seems fine to me to give everybody a little bit more time to review and consider and, deal with trying to put together incomplete information or answer questions or things like that. I'm familiar with, the fact that sometimes those sorts of deadlines can be used in a sort of gamesmanship fashion. And giving everybody a little bit more time, I think, is going to make sure that there's more thorough consideration. There's greater opportunity to find problems and concerns and to answer those sorts of concerns, as well, of course, giving the public a greater opportunity to offer their input. So, it seems fine to me.
Any other discussion? Okay.
I'll just add one comment, and that is, given the non-request for changes at this point, we will carry these forward to the next meeting for approval, a vote by the board.
And we do have a meeting set for January 25th, I believe. And I think that meeting is going to end up probably as a result of this meeting, where we're going to probably take up the consideration of any applications for the board vacancy. So it seems to me that's 2 weeks from now. We could potentially put this on that agenda if we want to take action on it at that time.
If, assuming you approve the other agenda item, it would be a special meeting, so we could certainly add that to the agenda on the special meeting, if that's okay with President Ruster-Holtz.
Certainly is. Would everybody else like to put that on our next meeting?
Yeah, I'm good with putting that in our next meeting.
Okay, great.
Yes. I mean, I don't have any other comments on it other than we're just extending the time and you pretty much covered it, so thank you.
Everybody gets 5 extra days.
5 extra days.
All right. Okay. Next, we're on to Roman numeral number 8, Action A. Approval of Board of Education Director, District A vacancy timeline and special meeting. Let's discuss this a little bit on our next meeting on the 21st, correct?
25th.
20, that's what I said, 25th. We have a few options now. And I'd like to discuss those options and a timeline so that everyone knows here and then the press knows as well how we'll be going through selecting and the process that we're going to move forward with. So as I understand, there's no legal way that it has to be done. We've collected applications from people. They have been.
So the deadline is this Friday, Friday 13th, and it's on the website. So, yeah. So, and if I recall last time, we had a couple applications that were like on the last day, kind of got like double the number. So,
right.
So yeah.
So that application is on the school website to apply, and what we will do is we will, as a board, we'll be reviewing those applications and then selecting people that we would want to interview. And so how would everyone like to see that work? When would you like to hold the interviews? How would you like to move forward with those selections? Is there a process that you would favor? And Mr. Witt, please chime in with your experience.
Well, we've done it recently, right, Cassie? And the process that we did at that time was in keeping with the precedent that the board had done many times over. There were some questions that were suggested by the administration that I think had been used previously, and I think we made sure that everybody who was interviewed got the exact same questions, and we each took turns asking one of those questions, and then I had a list of my own questions, which were also asked to everyone. So everybody who was interviewed got asked the exact same questions. And when we did it last time, there were not too many applicants. I think we had like 7 who wanted to come in and be interviewed, and we granted everybody that. And we did it like on a Saturday morning. And then I think we voted a couple days later, I think was my memory of it. So what I was frustrated with last time though was this sort of rigidity of it, and I remember there was some like opposition to having your own questions. I tend to think that that's a good thing. I do like the practice of making sure that each candidate essentially gets the same questions. And we had like a pretty strict time limit about it. So I think we should determine, who we would like to interview, and I think we should again try and do the same sorts of questions. But I would probably I would plan on doing my own questions, and I'd probably encourage other board members to come up with their own as well, as long as it's a reasonable number, so that the interview takes place in a reasonable time, and then questions that we would want to ask each person that is interviewed. So I think, though, what we're anticipating, though, David, because of our timeline, we have, the law does require that the vacancy, if it's going to be filled by the board, has to be done within 60 days. We've been.
And 60 days of, when was the starting date?
Posting, right?
It's from when we declared the vacancy,
Right.
which happened on November 30th. So January 25th is well within our 60-day window. It would basically be right around the beginning of February. But because we already had that on the calendar, and it fits within the timeline that we've already done with, it gives us almost 2 weeks from when the application cutoff is. I would like us to do the interview and potentially vote in one meeting, depending upon time limits and how comfortable everybody feels. Obviously, we could do interviews and then decide we're not ready to vote, but we just need to keep in mind, if we do that we're going to have to set another meeting, within the timelines required by law to accomplish that.
So let me ask you, are you saying that on the 25th we should do the interviews at our regular meeting? Are we at our special meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And then you're also proposing the interview on the 25th, and then each director comes up with his own set of questions? Or clarify that.
So last time I think there was confusion amongst the directors about whether they could do their own questions. And so I'm just saying I would encourage directors to develop their own questions if they wish. It may be that if we just go by the traditional questions, that we feel like that covers the ground. It's up to each director. But I certainly plan on having a few of my own questions. And I just hope that every director feels free to do that as well and understands they can, versus we don't want any confusion on that.
We did schedule time slots last time, and I think the time frame was in 30 minutes, and if all the questions were not answered in that time, if the applicants were lengthy or had a longer answer to one question or the other, I believe that the rest of the questions were emailed to them, and they gave their answer and send it back.
Cassie?
Well, what if the applicants cannot make the time slot in the interview?
Well, I think we could deal with that.
Okay.
Let's talk about that, because
I just want to make sure that if we're going to vote on the 25th, that and the applicants are coming in on Friday, that we're going to be able to see all the applicants and have a chance to interview them. So as soon as they come in, which we'll have to contact, I don't know if it's you or Kelly about that, but we'll need to get those scheduled. And I like the time slot was great, because then, if someone was busy, then they were able to have a few time options to pick, and I thought it was a good plan.
Yeah, I think, like Ken said, we need to attempt to be nimble and flexible, but I would also say, somebody who's applying to be a director on the board, they're going to need to get used to the idea that meetings have to happen with, advance notice, and timelines have to be met and things like that. So hopefully we can accommodate everybody that we would be interviewing, but if not, we're confined by the law. So, and they're going to have to come to appreciate that.
one other thing anything else?
Could we possibly post that criteria along with the application on the website? People know that the interview, if we decide that we are going to do the interview on the 25th, that you will be interviewed on the 25th, if that would be helpful.
Well, and I think since the deadline is the 13th, we're definitely going to have time to
We only have a few days.
coordinate, and if there's a problem,
Right.
president has the ability to call a different meeting. But it probably shouldn't be before the 25th.
No, not before the 25th.
My 2 cents is just to contact them as soon as possible and let them know as soon as we get the applicants.
Yes. One thing that I was thinking as well is, let's say we get 50 applications, just throwing that number out there. Do we want to whittle that down to a manageable number, like who each director would think is their top 3 picks? Or their top, 1, 2, 3, who they would like to interview? So that we can narrow that pool of applicants down for interviews. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that we have to be cognizant of just the amount of time and the reasonableness of it. So I would not anticipate that if we got 50 applications, that would translate into 50 interviews. That there's just not enough time to do that sort of thing. I think what each director could do is, contact the president or the board secretary expressing, interest in who they would like to interview. And with that information, the schedule could be worked out. So, but yeah, if there are 50, I presume that I would be seeking to do less than 50.
So if anybody else? So do we want to say, pick a number or let each?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to pick a number right now. I don't know how many have applied or who they are or anything like that. So I wouldn't want to jump the gun on that just yet.
So what you're saying is each director pick the people that they would like to interview.
And they could communicate that
Communicate that to the secretary.
or the board president.
Or to me.
So either.
Trying to push it off on someone else.
So there's nothing wrong with sending it to the board secretary.
All right. Does that sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
So what notes do you have, Madam Secretary?
I mean, other than just discussion on if you had, recently you just talked about 50 people, if we're gonna discuss who the top 3 to 5 and who they wanna interview. Patterson set a schedule, 30 minutes, and if we didn't have our questions, we'll email them. So similar to the previous interview process that I went through. And, Illingworth has already reiterated that we have the questions from the administration, but he does suggest that we also write our own and have some of our own to give as well.
And that application deadline is?
This Friday.
This Friday? The 13th?
13th.
And that we will have a special meeting for interviews on the 25th.
Yes.
Just one point of clarification.
Yes, sir.
I heard interviews and a vote on the 25th. But if you decide that you need more time to consider, you might schedule a vote later. But
yes.
To be clear, since it's a special meeting, we would have a vote item on the agenda as well.
Okay.
Is that right?
Right. So we can decide to vote then, or we can postpone it.
Right.
Okay.
But you want to put on the agenda to leave your options open.
Okay.
And I know this is on here for action with the ideas that we would have a motion to approve the Board of Education timeline and special meeting as proposed. I'm not quite sure we do need to have a vote on it because, of course, only the board president has the authority to set a meeting and approve the agenda. So I don't think we need to have a motion. I don't think it would be binding on you anyway, David. Just offering our opinions, and you can take them into account in terms of setting the agenda on January 25th.
Let me take responsibility for that error. The action box is checked, but you'll notice on the agenda it's under discussion, not under action. We did move it down to discussion. So no motion at this point is requested because you just called a special meeting. We'll make certain that makes it on.
Okay.
That's all right.
So we know what the agenda is basically going to be, and we'll have a meeting on making sure that agenda is clear.
Exactly.
For the 25th.
That's right.
So there will be no action on that. We just discussed it publicly and decided what we're going to do. Okay, are we finished with that discussion? All right, we'll move on to B, Social Studies Academic Standards Resolution.
I move to approve the resolution regarding the adoption of social studies standards.
Second.
Okay,
Discussion.
yes, with your approval, President Rostos, I'd like to read the resolution.
Please do.
Whereas Woodland Park School District RE2 District in Teller County, Colorado, is a public corporation and political subdivision duly organized and existing under the Constitution and the laws of the state of Colorado. And whereas the members of the Board of Education of the district, the board, have been duly elected, chosen, and qualified. And whereas the Colorado State Constitution in Article 9, Section 15, which was established in 1876, states that the local school boards, elected by their electors, should have control of instruction in the public schools of their respective districts, a constitutional principle known as local control. And whereas the board supports local control, and whereas the board recognizes the authority of the board, State Board of Education, to establish state academic standards to the extent that they inform the development of state assessments, but not the extent that they would subrogate academic standards the board adopts in fulfillment of its constitutionally authorized control of instruction. And whereas the board has adopted a purpose statement which states Woodland Park District exists to establish a common foundation of knowledge that cultivates educated citizens who appreciate and contribute to this great American republic as provided in the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. And whereas the board has identified the American Birthright Academic Standard published by the Civics Alliance as a superior academic social studies standard to that social studies standard recently revised by the Colorado State Board of Education. Be it therefore resolved that the Woodland Park School District RE2 Board of Education formally adopts the American Birthright Standard for social studies curricula for instruction in the district. And Mr. Witt, did you want to talk
Sure.
about that?
I'll just a couple of points of the history related to this. Excuse me, the American Birthright curriculum, the American Birthright Standard, as you may recall, was debated by the State Board of Education in the months of October, November, and December. When the State Board of Education went through their decision-making about revising the social studies standards for the state, this was proposed as an alternative. I met with a couple of the State Board of Education members as well to understand why this standard was one that they liked and why they felt it was superior to the proposed revisions. And one of the comments made was that the revisions to the social studies standards in Colorado are just turning into spaghetti as more and more statements of personal interest are being added to those. This is a solid standard, well thought out. It's adopted from the Massachusetts standard for social studies with some input from the Florida and Indiana state standards as well. It's thoroughly vetted by state board members who endorse this, so it's not something that we're simply looking at alone here, but in fact has gotten a lot of attention and a lot of thorough review. And in all honesty, in my opinion, and I think anyone that reads your board purpose statement would agree, the proposed American Birthright Standard is better aligned with the Woodland Park School District purpose and core beliefs.
Please no comment. If you'd like to comment, please contact one of us individually. Or a new nice young lady from the paper is here, please contact her as well. But please don't interrupt the meeting. I do have a couple questions. Mr. Witt, what are some of the top things that you like better, and can you contrast it from, let's say, action civics, global citizenship type thing? You know, those are kind of names that are almost become esoteric, that you can attach any value to it that you want. Why do you like this in contrast to, let's say, action civics?
Well, I didn't come prepared with line item comparison of various.
Well, then do what please do.
I will be happy to, I'll be happy to speak to the portion of the question.
Come on. You know what? If there's any more outbursts like that, I'm just gonna ask you to politely leave.
I'll just fucking leave, because this is a joke, and you are a joke. You are
Please,
ridiculous.
please
You have
leave.
no educational background.
Please
You shouldn't
leave.
be here in the first
Please
place.
leave.
What a joke.
Miles, will you escort this gentleman out right here? The man with the hat on, would you please leave? Now.
No.
We'll call the police. I'll do it right now. Either Miles, escort him out, Dell, please leave the meeting.
You go. You're worthless.
David, can we be in recess for a few minutes?
We'll go to recess now for 5 minutes while I call the police.
Grace and that Christian attitude right there?
Yeah, it's really sounds like it.
How can we already have discussions about this standards without actually, like somebody's already talked about it in private and without a board meeting?
How do you propose to without talking to the
You spoke, yeah, you didn't mention just right now. Oh, yeah. Right now. Right now. Yeah. Bye, thank you. Bye, Sarah. Bye, Sarah. Just wanted to clarify that.
I mean, that was best practice.
He's all the way up. So I'm not going Sue, I don't know.
Very decisive point.
I don't know.
I'm good. How are you?
I put my cup in the dishwasher without intruding. I don't know if you remember if you were first. Yeah. There you go.
Just fun that 1 hour and let you go home.
And you gotta stand up. Oh, that's right. That just like to be
So they
But if the teacher still is right, the students, that's what I have faith in, that he actually does feel thoroughly in it. Yeah, your headspace is a big part of it. So I feel very confident in it, but yeah.
Where do you guys, where do cookies come from? Well, what are we gonna do?
I can still tell you that Long River.
Well, I take them, don't. Are you sure? You know, I had a thought possibly for lunch tomorrow. I know that the police are here now, so they're back there talking
That was just the last 2 hours.
Went to Vegas to see my daughter. No, yeah, we had to drive to the airline situation. No, she did. It's not too bad. We went I-70 out, it was snowing, icy, that was bad, so we just went south to Phoenix, and I started up, got through. Much better.
It is a
Yeah, I saw.
honestly, I-70 is very dry, brutal anyway, let alone. I had an elk when we were coming back from Vegas and it was dark, on the west side.
That stretch between Gypsum and Glenwood Springs.
That's right, and then there was like something, it's just, I wish I would have done it more, I guess we did it on the way out. And the delay, it was on the way back, it wasn't icy, but I think it's.
Okay, let's call the meeting back to order. Really sorry about that. It's a business meeting of the Board of Education, and if we can't carry on the meeting, there's nothing else to do but to ask people to leave. And I hate doing that. I don't like it at all. I want people to be able to stay here, but if it's disrupting, there's no alternative but to ask people to leave. So I hope you can understand. All right, let's pick up the meeting where we left off.
Yeah, if, I'll try and just pick up the question of, what do we like about this standard? I think the first thing to answer there is that this is a standard. It is not curriculum. I heard some confusion on that point earlier. This just establishes a framework to make certain that we cover a robust, thorough presentation of social studies across all the grade levels. There has to be some standard in place. The board, I think, has reviewed and feels this is a superior standard to the one that the state board passed, and it's entirely within your purview to choose a standard. This does not dictate curriculum. The district will consider, review this standard, review the curriculum that's presently in place, and make determinations about curriculum as they always will as they work through that process against standards. But just to be clear, this is not dictating curriculum. This is a standard.
Can parents opt out?
So Ken, I have just one question for you on this. Do you believe that adoption of these standards will improve our ability to teach the full, complete, warts and all history of this country to our students?
I do. One of the hallmarks of this particular standard set was that they took a standard set from starting with Massachusetts and then tried to compare and contrast the areas covered across a couple of other states as well to come up with a thorough and balanced standard that includes all of the major issues and topics in social studies from at least those experts' view. But a significant effort went into balancing and making it thorough. So I'm very impressed with it. Some of our state board members were very impressed with it. So I'm certainly confident.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion about it?
I don't have a question other than I understood that it wasn't curriculum, it's just curricula. It's a standard, it's a guideline. Teachers and the school and the district will still go through and decide that, and it just sort of has, this is a resolution, and it goes along with our district purpose statement, so.
It certainly goes with our district purpose statement. There were some things that I was troubled with the new standards that did come down from the state. And that was when you hear action civics. I always liked action civics. I thought that participating in local government, working with different parties on elections, volunteering for election days, campaigning, that's the kind of thing that I did as action civics, both in high school and college. So, those were the kinds of things that I really appreciated. So, but then I started to find out as I was researching that the meanings of things have shifted a bit, and that civics wasn't just learning about our government and learning about the operation of things and what makes us uniquely superior and just a unique kind of government that's been a representative government. That's not the kind of direction that things were heading. But that's what I was beginning to learn about it. So I did like the things that I read about this American birthright. I liked a lot of the things about that. I haven't read a lot about it, but it is a guideline. It's not a curriculum, is what you would say. Okay. Any other discussion?
I'm ready to vote.
There were some questions that weren't answered. There were some questions that were asked during public comment that I was hoping you could address. And I'll say they were from Kershid, and I don't know if you guys had a chance to write them down, but I know that there's several that are curious about some of those other questions.
Well, I do appreciate that, Nate, and I honor your question. I'll ask the other board members if there's any other discussion about them that they would like to discuss. Is there any further discussion about those things? I do have a question. So if we vote to adopt this resolution this evening, what are next steps? Is there any kind of a timeline? Is there any next steps that would be involved, and what does that look like?
I think that's probably that's something that's going to be taken into consideration by the administration, the school leaders, and our new superintendent in terms of whether the adoption of the new standards is going to lead to any modifications of curriculum, courses that are being offered, things like that. And it should be added that before Mr. Witt came here, Ms. Cassens had always told us that we were going to be looking at modifying our social studies curriculum and courses and teachings for the following school year because of changes made by the State Board of Education. So that's always been on the table. And since we know that's going to be happening over the next couple months, these standards are necessary, especially in light of the mission and values and board purpose statement that we adopted after a couple months of public deliberation. These standards are a natural next step in light of the core values of this district, in light of the board purpose statement, and they are going to assist our educational leaders in developing the curriculum for next year. And quite frankly, they need to know what standards they're going to be using just as a starting point, and that's what this will do. So in terms of a timeline, that's going to be up to our school leaders.
Anyone else?
No, when was that discussed? Was that discussed that we talked about the social studies curriculum when we were doing our purpose statement, our district purpose statement, Director Illingworth?
I can't remember exactly
Because
when it was
I
discussed,
remember that was
but
because we talked about how the social studies standards did change and that we're going to have to localize them for our community and our rural district.
yeah, so this is something the state board is basically forcing our hand on and forcing the school districts and educators all across the state on. They're changing standards and everybody's going to have to adapt and react to that. And this is part of that journey.
If you don't mind, Cassie, I know you are always investigating things. And I don't know if I just have a couple questions to see, do you know, and maybe you don't, so I don't really want to put anybody on the line. So if anybody knows the answer to this question, do you know how other school districts are discussing these new state standards that were handed out to the schools?
Well, they undoubtedly are.
Yeah, I would think that
they are, and there's some
some
I believe, I don't want to say what district because I don't want to put it on public record since you're putting me on the spot here, but I do believe there was a resolution introduced at a district down in the Springs about this, but I'll need to double check that for you.
Anyone else? Anything else you'd like to say, Mr. Witt?
No, I think we've covered it all.
Okay.
Okay, we have
All
a
right, so
motion or a second.
We
so-
do have a motion on the table and for this resolution, a curriculum standard, not a curriculum.
Would you like me to call?
Say it again?
Do you want me to do the call?
Roll call.
Roll call. Illingworth?
Aye.
Kimball? Aye. Patterson?
Aye.
Russell? Aye. Motion carries.
Reports and updates. Board of Education reports. Anyone have anything that they'd like to say?
I just want to say that I'm keeping the just incalculable loss of that young student in mind. I don't know how many people know this. I also lost a child, my firstborn, Georgiana. It was about 11 years ago. It was on March 20th, 2011. It was 12 years ago. And it's something that you never get over, but you learn to live with it. And I just am really, really heartbroken about what's happened. And I hope that his family in time finds comfort and peace. And I hope that, I know that this is a community full of love. And I know we have so many, especially at Columbine, people who were touched and grieving in ways that are hard to imagine. And I know that we all want to find ways we can to comfort each other and to help, especially that poor family. And anyway, I hope we all keep him and his family in our prayers.
Anyone else, any comments?
This is sort of off of the school board direction, but just talking about what's been happening in our community. On Monday, there is the Teller County Suicide Symposium is happening at the Ute Pass Cultural Center from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's free, and I invite everyone to attend, or people that are struggling with suicide or veterans or anyone that you know to attend on Monday.
Director Patterson, anything? All right, we have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
Moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Illingworth?
Aye.
Kimball? Aye. Patterson? Aye. Russell Holmes?
Aye. Thank you everyone for coming this evening.